So it's not C commanded, despite it being
so
co-referential.
what does that affect?
I mean, what does it affect?
The fact that we know that it's not C commanded.
Well, this means that he is not bound by anything in this clause. Not bound. Okay? There is no violation of principle B. In order for principle B to be violated, both conditions have to be met. Co-referentiality and C command. Okay, but only one is met. You've only found that it's co-referential with something. Okay? But it itself isn't bound. It's free in the clause because it's not C commanded by something that it has the same 5 features with. I mean, proper names, referential expressions, and pronouns can have the same 5 features with other things in the sentence. They would have to, or else we would never have a reflexive license. Because the reflexive needs to be like those guys. Right? The issue is that item C commanded by whatever it's co-indexed with or co-referential with. If it is, then you're in trouble. Okay?
So this is like a test to see if we did it right, wrote it.
The structure right?
Yeah.
No, this is not a test for the structure. This is a test to see that you've understood binding theory. Okay? So rather than say, if I were to just give you this sentence and not ask you to draw VP shell, but say, discuss whether binding theory is observed, you'd still have to draw the structure because you'd have to check for C command. You know, what we did here was we drew the structure because we want to get more practice, and now we're talking about binding theory, right? So, principle B of binding theory isn't violated because this pronoun is not C commanded by its co-referential DP. Okay? And you're not done here. You also now have to worry about the reflexive. Okay? So, the reflexive, so this himself, observes principle A of binding theory, right? Which says, what does that say?
Reflexive is bound to the
Co-referential and C commanded, okay? This one's the opposite of the pronoun, okay? Fine, so then you have to check and see whether there's anything co-referential with it, okay? And what we notice is that it's co-referential with the subject DP, with he, okay? Is it C commanded by this DP? Yes, okay, so co-referential with he and C commanded by DP. You don't have to put it in words, the explanation. You can just draw a little arrow on your tree or something that indicates that, you know, like we did here. Okay, you can just draw this and say C command, and then I know that you've thought about it. Okay, so principle A is observed. Okay. So questions about this? Yes.
Did you say in class that you had to talk about all principles, even if it's not there, like even principle
No,
C? Or
you have to
only
talk
the-
about principles that are relevant to the task at hand. But for the assignment, for that second exercise, you had to really what I was expecting was to see all principles because they all apply. Okay, you had Tolstoya and then each other's friends that were referential expressions, you had ya and they that were pronouns, and then you had a bunch of reflexives or reciprocals, anyway, stuff falling under principle A. So you only talk about, there's no reason to bring in principle C here, okay? But if you had Max saw himself in the mirror, then you would be talking about principle C instead of principle B, right? So remember, C command is vital, right? Okay, I'd like to do something that's not English, though. Because, so we gave examples on the handout. When we introduced VP shells, we sort of said that there's also data from other languages that's going to further support this, okay? We gave 2 types of arguments, really, for these VP shells. One was a more semantic-y argument from theta roles, okay? And we had things like, for, Marge gave Homer a hug, decomposition, right? Give is cause to have, okay? Showed the pictures to someone, show is cause to see, okay? So there's a semantic sort of argument. And then there's a sort of morphological argument that you can make from languages that have positive morphology, okay? Okay?
Yeah.
All right, okay, I just want to make sure that people are following. So, let's assume that you will see some example that's like an example. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you this sentence from Chichewa that actually was on last year's midterm. Okay, so here it goes. Sort of in the same vein of the data that we brought from Onondaga and Chichewa on handout 8 with causative morphology, right? But, it wasn't on any assignment or anything like that, so we want to make sure that everybody's clear on this, okay? And if I sort of gave you an example of this type, and if I were to ask you to use this example to demonstrate that we need VP shells. Okay, say find as many arguments in support for the expanded verbal domain. What would you say, or where would you begin? How would you go about doing this? Look for the verb because it's about the verb, right? We're talking about a verb phrase and the rationale behind expanding it. Where is the verb? You guys are looking at English. Careful, careful. It's fall. This is necessary because otherwise you don't really know how to interpret this.
Yeah.
But don't deal with English. Do not analyze the English because you're going to get 0 points. Yeah. And there's nothing I can do about that.
It's the anagua.
Okay? So it's the anag, yeah, that's right, and this is the one you're focusing on. Okay? So and this means fall. Okay? And you have to think in terms of, remember, theta roles. How many theta roles would a verb like fall have?
Well, if we consider not.
It's one.
No, I'm not. Why would you consider not? You're looking at English
Because
again.
fall is different than not.
But you're looking at fall. Okay, what does knock mean? You can decompose when you knock over that water pot, what happens to the water pot?
It falls, right?
Oh, it causes to fall. So
It's
you can think of this as sort of cause to fall. I mean, this is really what you have, isn't it? Fall and cause. Do not analyze the English, because this is not about English. This is about this other data. I mean, we have to be able to look at other languages to not only draw support for English, but like what we're doing here has to apply cross-linguistically. This is not, English syntax or English grammar. So we're talking about fall. So I'm not asking how many theta roles knock has. I'm asking about how many theta roles fall has. Okay, produce a sentence with fall and show me the 2 theta roles. Well, some say 1, some say 2. I need a sentence.
I need 1.
What tends to fall
Something
in autumn?
falls.
Leaves. Okay. Produce a sentence with falling leaves.
The leaves fell.
The
Or
leaves fell
are
off the tree, the leaves are falling, you know, I don't know. How many arguments does fall have?
Only one.
Only something happens to the leaves.
Something like that.
Okay, from the tree to the ground, you know, these are some showing location or source, direction. I don't have to have them.
Right.
Lots of leaves are falling. Period. How many arguments does fall have?
One.
One. Okay, so fall is intransitive. Okay. What else can we notice? Or when you talk about verbs, what else do you look for? Locate the verb. You locate. I wouldn't say noun phrase because, or DPs even. I don't want to call them by name because, you know, what if I have something like
Okay, so verb, subject, and object.
okay, you know, I find my verb, and if I just look for the noun phrase or the DP, I've done this, and then am I going to conclude that no is intransitive? No, you know something. What do I know? What is this thingy? It's a clause, right? Because I've got everyone is under pressure, okay? So I look for, the general term is arguments. I look for the arguments, okay? Then I worry about the categories, but I look for the arguments, okay? So something falls. So what's falling? In Chichewa even, not in English.
The water pot, that
Not
is
even.
kuti.
Kuti, okay? Because if you get some other language, I want to see the other language discussed. Okay, so whatever that is there, which means yes, that water pot. So the English is given to you so that you can, you know, in order to help you analyze. But really, what you're analyzing is this, right? So if I ask for discussion of, I don't know, Russian or Chichewa or something, then that's what you're discussing. Okay?